My namaste to all of you. Very delighted that you could join this class. Very delighted that there has been so much interest on this class on Drg Drsya Viveka. And I have to thank Ramanand Patel ji, who has been phenomenal in spreading the information about it. And as a result of this, just in the last day or so, I have received 26 new people who want to join. And so, along with the 100 plus people that were already part of this, so we are over about 130, which is phenomenal. I could never have guessed that I'll have the opportunity of talking to so many of you around the world. And so welcome all of you. I feel very fortunate, especially in these times where we have a complete lockdown of activity. Some of the students set up this camera at my home, and I'm very comfortable and very happy about being able to spend this time talking about Vedanta in various classes during the week. And so just sitting in my own home, being able to communicate with all of you is very, very pleasant to me. So welcome all of you. So before we get started on the teaching itself, just a few points before that. So I hope that you had not much difficulty in finding the YouTube. I sent some instructions to you. Some of the newer ones you may not have gotten it yet, so I will send another email just in case, but I'm assuming that you will be able to get to it. Do visit the website that we have, arshavidyacenter.org. I'll send you that in an email. And the reason for that is that if you go there, you will be able to find a copy of the text verses that we will be using until we get the full reference book by Swami Viditatmananda ji, which I will explain in a few minutes. But until then, we have verses. There are 46 verses. It's a very short text. And so I have actually formulated the verse in Sanskrit, the word meanings in English, and the sentence meaning in English. And so that has also been prepared in a text, and that you can see from the reference from the website. It won't be ready until maybe later today, so give me some time to finish doing that. Also, the audio of each session will be available from the same website. If you prefer to just listen to, supposing you're in a car or something like this, you can listen to the previous class. So that audio will also be available, and of course you can view it on YouTube as you are doing now. Now, what we're going to do, what I had mentioned, perhaps not to all of you, is that in addition to the classes and the teachings, we will also have the help of a book written by Swami Viditatmananda that many of you may be familiar with. He is now the main Acharya at Sailorsburg after Swami Dayanandji's Mahasamadhi. And Swami Viditatmananda taught Drg Drsya Viveka, I believe in 2008. So we had a summer retreat over 3 days. And so he taught this book in that retreat. And what we did was to transcribe those talks we all kind of managed to do that within ourselves. And then we found somebody to edit it in the East Coast, and Terry Coe is his name. And so Terry edited it with the help of a couple of our local students. And this came out to be this book called Drg Drsya Viveka. It's a very beautifully written book and a very detailed book. And I would like to make sure that you have a chance to use this as a backup to our classes. Now, I only have, before we ordered this from the Sailorsburg bookshop, this coronavirus lockdown had not started. So I just got a whole shipment of it, and I just wanted to send it out to people. We have 57 copies. And at this moment, we cannot go to the post office. I don't want to go. I have not traveled outside my home for about 2.5 weeks. But this will end, hopefully. And we will be able to send this to you by surface mail. And so if you are interested, then please write to me and give me your street address. And we can send it to you all over. I know there are a number of people from Germany. If you have a session where many of the people are in a single group, I can send 5 or 6 of them to, and then you can distribute it. So, and in the US, we'll be able to do it. It costs $20, including the shipping. I think the book itself is about $15 or $16. And I'm just approximating another. So and I will send you instructions on how to send the money later. You don't have to worry about it, because even the book, I don't know when I will send it to you. So we can start getting with start with the teaching, and then eventually in the next, I think within a month or so or less than that, I would like you to have a copy of this book so you can actually supplement the text with a reference book from Swami Viditatmananda. So I wanted to tell you that. Let's see what else. So a couple of other housekeeping points. For those of you that are watching this live, I would very much like you to please make your presence on YouTube felt so that I know who is there. And also, most importantly, towards the last 15 minutes of the class, I would reserve it for question answers. And so I would look at your questions on the chat window on YouTube and be able to answer your question live. If you are not, if you are watching this later on, then kindly send me an email with your questions, and I'll be very happy to answer them for you. Do keep in touch. I really like the fact that you can make it some comments about, I could not understand this, or maybe improve the lighting or the sound or something. Any kind of a feedback that you have, I welcome very much for you to do that. Then a couple of points, and then we can get going on the teaching itself. 2 points actually. One is that for those of you that are looking at the live streaming, please know that I try to be very punctual. And so at 10 o'clock local time, I will start. I am ready. I don't take much time to get to come to this table and start studying. So be punctual, because if you are in a phone call or doing something else, finishing up your breakfast, and you miss the first 5 or 10 minutes, that is an important part, because that's where the kernel of the talk is given in the very beginning. So it's important for you to be punctual, number one. And the second point, and the last point, is that it'd be very nice if you can not be doing multitasking while you are watching this. This is not an easy medium to have because we are not live with each other, but it's adequate. But the one thing that to do in order to get the most out of these classes is to make sure that you are sitting down with a paper and pencil to take notes and you are paying full attention. If there is an emergency call, obviously you have to take it, but I would very much prefer, for your own receptivity and understanding, to give it complete attention. So with those points, I welcome you all and let us begin the teaching. Oh yeah, one other point. I'm going to do a short prayer in the beginning and a short prayer in the end, and I will actually record the prayers, and you can go over them if you want to, and so that you're familiar with it. Also, one other point I forgot. I will record all the 46 verses in Sanskrit, so that you have a chance to listen to them, because we will begin each verse with a pronunciation of each one's, and so if you want to follow that, you may want to at least listen to the recorded, and that also will be available from the website that I mentioned earlier. So on the website, now to summarize, you will have a brief copy of the text verses themselves. You can print that for yourself. You'll have an audio of the prayers as well as the verses, and you will also have the audio of the class. All three of them you can have for supplementary reasons, and if there are some other things that we need, then I can do that as well. So let me start the class with the opening prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvisha vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, very brief explanation about this of this prayer. So, this prayer Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu is chanted whenever there is a teaching and learning involved. And the reason for saying that is because this chant is in a dual form. So it's a prayer to God to make sure that the two of us, so the two is the teacher and the student. So Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu. May you protect us in this endeavor, and may you allow us to prosper in this endeavor. So Sahanau Bhunaktu. And a few other things. Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai. So may the two of us sharpen our thinking, our focus, our understanding. So Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinau Vadhitamastu. So may my focus and understanding and brilliance be sustained. It doesn't go away, that I can build on it. And then finally it just says very interestingly, Ma vidvisha vahai. This is a very interesting one because it says, may the two of us not quarrel. May we not argue with each other. So this is an interesting thing. where is the opportunity to fight and to quarrel? It has some meaning to it. What it says is, may the teacher and the student have a mutual self-respect, a mutual respect for each other. May you have respect for me as a teacher, and may I also have a respect for you as a student. I shouldn't say, oh, these people don't understand what I'm saying. I don't know why I'm doing. No. You've come to me with some understanding, and it is my privilege. And I would say this, this is an interesting thing. Our acharyas, our teachers, acharyas means people who teach and also live a life. So the word acharya, which I'll use many times, combines two things. It combines the ability to teach something which is authentic, which has come around from thousands of years, which is real, which is authentic. This is number one. And one whose life is consistent with the teaching, whose living a life is consistent with the teaching. Acharati. Acharya means, acharati means that he's acharaha. His character, his way of life. So it is an interesting thing. If you are learning physics, let's say, and from a very renowned physicist, very well known, and very proficient, very knowledgeable, you don't have to worry about his character. What he does outside the class is none of your business. He may be a rotten person. You may have a broken home. But as long as the teaching of physics is concerned, that's all you're concerned about. This is not true in Vedanta. So a true teacher, which is called Acharya, is one who knows the subject matter like a physicist, but whose life is also consistent with what the teaching says. You have to examine that. And so this is what an Acharya is saying. So what our Acharyas have been saying all along is that it is very important for the teacher and the student to trust and respect each other. So this is the point that I was making earlier. Let me complete that. So the Acharyas used to say, I should not, as a teacher, this is an advice to the teacher, I should not have a feeling that, I am a guru, and these people are just listening to me, and they are kind of, sitting a little bit below me. He says, no, that's not the right one. My first teacher, Swami Chinmayanand, I remember a few things from his teaching, even though it was like 40 years ago. Quite a few things, actually. He made a point. He says, when you are teaching to the students, make sure you are aware of the fact that your mind is a student too. And you are educating yourself, your own mind, and not educating as a brand new one. It's kind of like an exploration, joint exploration, where perhaps the teacher has a little idea of which paths to take. And the student may not yet. It will later on. So you know the path, but it's kind of like going on a new hike. So you have an expert hiker in front of you who knows this territory very well. And says when people get tired, Swami Bheshananji made this point very, very interestingly enough. He says, there is a big difference between a person on a travel, could be a hike, it could be a motor journey, whatever. Big difference between two people, one that doesn't know how far it is yet to go, and the other person that knows how far it is to go. And this typically happens whenever you are on in a car going for a week, long journey, and you have children in your class. They get tired very quickly. They'll say, "How long do we have to go? We've been going forever. How long is it?" And then you say, "It's only very short, very short. Don't worry about it." It's only half hour away. They think it is going to take forever. So this is the difference between an acharya and a student. The acharya knows the territory, and so it's not as though I don't feel confident, but I don't feel superior, because we are both on the... So one of our acharyas, Swami Tattvavidanandaji, used to say that. He says, this is a joint exploration. Every time you teach, the teacher also enjoys as much as, or should enjoy as much as the teacher. It's kind of, as the student, it's kind of like going on another hike. So supposing you go with a guide on a exploration. The guide also enjoys every time you go to the exploration. So this is the meaning of Ma Vid Vishabhai, means don't have this kind of like, even like supposing there are people who may not be able to join every time. Don't have a feeling, where is that person? You're not very serious. I may make a note of it, but people have a reason for doing what they are doing. Respect it. So that's the purpose. I didn't mean to say spend so much time on this prayer, but I thought we'll at least explain. I'd like to explain everything that we are teaching. Okay, so what I'd like to do today is give you some introductory remarks before we start the first verse of Drg Drsya Viveka, which could happen next class. I don't think I'm not going to start today. So I just want to give you some background. And it's very possible that this background may spill over next week as well. But it's good to do. And I took some cues from Swami Viditatmananda, where in the very beginning he has a chapter called The Essence of the Text. Before he starts the text, and this is, oh my gosh, 52 pages. I was reviewing it a couple of days ago. Really had excellent points. No, I'm sorry, that's not true. 21 pages. And then he gives the essence of the text, but anyway, 21 pages. Okay? So I'm going to summarize some of those points, and it may spill over the next day, but I think I should be able to finish it today. All right. So let us start with the key word in this text called Viveka. Drg Drsya Viveka means the Viveka, which I'll explain now, the Viveka between the seer and the seen. Okay, so this is the title of the book, and let us look into the word Viveka. So we have used in some of our previous classes the word discrimination as the translation for the word Viveka. And it's true, it's a good word, discrimination. But for the purposes of our introduction today, I would like to use the word separation as the meaning of the word Viveka. The ability to separate. What does that mean and why is that important? So let's look into that. So we are often faced with the challenge of separating two things that are mixed up together. Excuse me. One very obvious one, which I remember from my childhood when I was in India, in Amritsar, born there, our ladies of the home, mother, grandmothers and so on, they would be preparing rice for cooking. And the rice comes in big bags, and sometimes it is not very clean. So you have some particles mixed in there with the rice, which they don't cook. So if you start eating cooked rice and you suddenly see a pebble that's not a good idea. So what the ladies used to do was to separate. And so they would have, I still remember, so they'll put this, a handful of rice on the right hand side, and then they keep on separating. And then occasionally if there is a pebble, they would keep the pebble separate. And then now the left hand side, you have a clean rice. So this is a very simple example of Viveka, of separation. There are more complex incidences where this becomes important. Okay? In the Bhagavad Gita, this is an important thing to understand. There is this concept of what is called Shreyas and Preyas. And Shreyas and Preyas means what is good and what is pleasant. Simple example of that is eating sugar is pleasant, but is it good for you? And this separation of two things that are mixed up together. So what happens sometimes is that oftentimes what is pleasant is also good. And an example of that in my life also is dark chocolate. All of us, I think, I don't know if anybody is not fond of chocolate. I am very fond of chocolate. And the medical science says that it is very good to have limited amounts of dark chocolate. So there's a case where it is both pleasant and good. Sugar is not part of that. There is some sugar in the dark chocolate also when you eat, but let's say relatively pure sugar is pleasant but not good. And so you don't separate them until you have to. When I discovered I was pre-diabetic late in my life, and I'm now almost like fully diabetic. I am diabetic, but under control. I take some Ayurvedic medicines, and my doctors say at your age, oftentimes now the doctors all start with their conversation with, at your age. That means you don't have that much more to live. This is interesting. And so they will say, at your age, this level of sugar in your body is okay. And so I'm able to control it. But anyway, now I can separate the pleasant from the good. I hardly ever take pure sugar desserts, unless it's somebody's birthday and so on and so forth, and I take some of it. But I keep away from it, and so this is following Shreyas, not Preyas. So this is a discrimination that I have. This is a separation. This is a Viveka that we have to do to separate the pleasant. So another one, for example, is to invest your money rather than spend it right now. We have to separate them. We have to figure out, is it better for me to invest so I can enjoy that later? Or can I just spend it right now and just enjoy? So that's the difference between Shreyas and Preyas. So the separation between two choices is something that I'm faced with in my life all the time. But now please understand this. The failure to separate the good from the bad is not that serious until you repeat it. You make wrong choices, you're not really thinking properly, then it can accumulate to hurt you. But there is one Viveka which is so important that it can make difference between life and death. Literally life and death. And that is a failure to separate the Atma, which is I, from Anatma, which is not I. The failure to distinguish and separate the two clearly is fatal. It is very fundamental to my existence. This is an amazing thing. The principle is the same. Principle is that you need to be able, you need the ability to be able to distinguish them. Swami Viditatmananda gave this example. It's a good example. That, supposing the ladies are separating the rice from the pebbles, small pebbles. Suppose there is a white colored pebble. It is very hard to separate the white colored pebble from the white colored rice. So in that case, what you need to do is to be very careful, because it is not just your eyes, but your hand. If you strike something, you have to pay attention. Anyway, so what it just means is that sometimes the separation becomes difficult. It is not easy. Same thing in our life also. We sometimes take the easy way out, not easy, because we think, I think it'll be okay. It's not a big problem. It may turn out to be a problem. Anyway, that's a separate thing. But when it comes to the distinction making, being the ability to make a distinction between the self and the non-self, the Atma and the Anatma, It is very important. You cannot say very, 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 very important. It is crucial. So we will look into that. This is what's important. Here, the example used in Vedanta, the various examples used, we will see they're important examples because they convey the subject matter in a very clear fashion that has been going around for thousands of years. The examples. We will give it to you on various occasions. In this occasion, there is an example which is very graphic. The example is to put a round iron ball in the fire. So you take, for whatever reason, if you were to do this, supposing you take a ball and or really any other shape for that matter, it doesn't have to be round, but you put this iron ball which you took from some place which is cold to the touch and also dark looking, and you put it into some flaming fire and you wait. What will happen is, after a while, this will turn into a fireball. A fireball. So consider this example. What has happened is that two things that were totally separate have gotten mixed up together. The round ball is cold and it has a round shape. The fire is intrinsically hot. That's why this example is given. So this is another example that could have been given is that supposing you put this iron ball into a steaming hot water. That won't be an appropriate example. You know why? Because the steaming hot water is not intrinsically hot. It is hot only in contact with fire. So its own nature is not heat. So that's why that example is not appropriate. But a fire, its nature is fire, is heat and light. Sometimes it can lose its light and retain the heat, but it never really never gives up its nature, which is heat and light. Generally, the light can go because supposing you have an ember which is burning, and then it kind of appears to cool down. It appears that it's not lighting up the thing as much. But the heat of it is intrinsic. So now, on one hand, you had the round ball which was cold and dark and also had a round shape. And on the other hand, you had the fire which is hot, has no shape. Has no shape. So now you put them together and you know what has happened? You have a fireball. So in this example, the ball has acquired the luster and the heat of fire, and the fire has acquired a round shape. This is what has happened. This is the situation that we find ourselves in. Really, this is exactly what is happening to us. Due to lack of viveka. And we are born into this, as we will go into this in more detail later on. It's not as though at one time I had Viveka and then I've lost it. No. The reason we are born is because of what is called aviveka, which means lack of the ability to separate. Now let us see what are the two things that have gotten mixed up together. Okay. One is the body, mind, and senses. So both the subtle elements of my body, mind, etc., the gross part of my existence, which is the body, and also the various instruments of perception and action, indriyas, those have a particular shape, and also they are inert. They are inert. They need something else to get them going. By themselves, they are not alive. They are not alive. In fact, this is exactly what happens, that when a person dies, all of a sudden you see a person who is, in my age, I have seen really a lot of people. I don't know if I've actually seen a person, I think I have a couple of times, where at the very moment they were alive and then they die. And so interesting thing is that one moment they have a hand movement and their eyes are so on. In the next moment, the whole body is not endowed with the Atma. It remains, it's still there. There's no change in the body. There's no posture and so on. Gone. It cannot move. It cannot breathe. It cannot talk. So the body, mind, etc. are really jada. Jada means inert. Okay? So this is like the iron ball. They have a shape. The body has a shape, the eyes have a shape, everything is there. But by themselves, they are not really alive. On the other side, like the fire, there is the Atma, there is the Self, which is the nature of consciousness, awareness, knowledge. All these are the same words of the same vastu, the same entity. The word vastu is used in Sanskritam. So some people translate it as a thing. It's not a thing. It is some entity which is alive, which is endowed with awareness, and which is endowed with knowledge. And if you want, we can just do a very quick meditation. This is very early on. We are going to do more meditations later on. But just to illustrate this point about the intrinsic nature of the self, of knowledge, let us do a very quick meditation. Okay? So, just sit wherever you are, and for now just close your eyes just for a few minutes. Please see the truth of, not with the eyes, but see the truth of the following. I know. I am aware. Is your intrinsic nature. You are not someone who enjoys awareness, who possesses awareness. You are awareness. See this fact. How do we see this fact? See the fact that no matter when you are, wherever you are, you are aware. Your knowledge, I know, is more fundamental to you than what you know. You may know some specific things. You may not know some specific things. I know English. I do not know German. But look at this. I know that I know English. I know that I do not know German. So my knowledge of German or English or other things resides in the mind, including memory. But I know is at a higher level, intrinsic as I am. See this fact. Do you ever lose I know? Never. Never. In all experiences, at all times, at all places, I stay as I am. The awareness. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. You can open your eyes. So, the Atma is the nature of awareness. I know. I knownness is true for all of us. I know I am talking. You know I am listening or I am watching. In all cases, I know. This is the self. And eventually we will see this is God. This is Ishvara. But that's later. For now, let's go back to our example of the iron ball placed in the fire. So what happens in this case is that I am without form. I am formless. The I is formless. And it is independent of time, as we saw in the meditation. You can never say, I am aware. Last 2 minutes I was not aware. You're always aware, because that's you. But this awareness is without any form. Like a fire has no form. Intrinsically it has no form. But here is what gets problematic. The intrinsic Atma and the Anatma, which is Jada, which is inert, get mixed up together. So the Atma and Anatma are so mixed up that I cannot distinguish between them. So the I, like a fire that takes a form, I also take a form. I am old, the form of the body. I am sad, the form of the mind. I cannot see very well, the form of the sense organs, eyes, or hear very well, or I can hear very well. So there is a complete mix-up. A complete aviveka, a lack of separation. So therefore this word viveka assumes enormous importance in my understanding. So I think this is a beautiful book. As we will see, it simplifies the analysis, the analytical method of distinguishing between two things that are nothing like each other. The fire and the iron ball are totally different, nothing like each other. At least in the case of the white or rice and the white pebbles, they both share the same characteristics. They are both white and they both have a shape. So that you can distinguish between them. But between the iron ball and the fire, there is nothing common. But they can make to look as though they are the same thing. It's a red hot fireball. So, this is the subject of our text. Let me check on the time. 11 o'clock. Okay, I will teach for another 20 minutes or so, and then maybe a little bit less than that. And then I will open it up for questions today, and then we will terminate today's class. Okay, so the next point. Please see this fact that the non-separation of the self and the non-self is the cause of all my life's problems. All of them, not some of them. This is fundamental to my leading a life of uncertainty, of mortality, and of unhappiness. This is the only reason for it. We will continue on this trend throughout. But what happens is that because of this lack of separation, because of this aviveka, I get into a rut where I cannot get out of. I can maybe get out of it temporarily here and there. So I have some sukham. Sukham meaning some happiness every now and then. And I feel that that's enough for me to go on. But then again, it doesn't last very long. And I keep changing things. Keep changing things to make it better. I take better care of my health. I surround myself with the right people that I can relate to. These are the kind of things I can do. Eat better, have a better job. But none of them really give me the satisfaction that I need. I think of it as, so every now and then, very rarely, I can come up with some ideas that I did not get it from my acharyas. 99.9% my ideas are from the acharyas. Or maybe 0.1% once in a while. So here's another one that I thought of. My life is like rearranging the deck chairs. That's what it is. I'm just rearranging the deck chairs. Sometimes, even in the home, what happens is somebody says, you know what, we've had these furniture situations for a long time, let's change it. And so you come up with a brand new furniture arrangement. You say, oh, looks much better. We have more space and so on and so forth. Then you get tired of that as well. Our life is just like that, really speaking. And it's so sad. It's a tragedy that because of this mistake, I lead a life of limitations and mortality. I lead a life where all I do is, again, just putting more words into it, all I do is to improve my mortality. Maybe extend it. We're so afraid of coronavirus, and we're trying to extend it by avoiding it some way or the other. How long are you going to avoid it? Something else will happen. Well, I know, but then I want to live a little bit longer. Fine, I understand. It is so sad that here is a person who is intrinsically immortal, who's not really looking into it. Instead, all I'm doing is just improving my mortality, my situation in life. So therefore, really speaking, the understanding of Viveka as it applies to me, not to any given situation, is crucial. For those of you that attended the first segment of the Introduction to Vedanta, and by the way, I can interrupt if some of you who are brand new to me and to this teaching, we had given 16 classes on an Introduction to Vedanta about a year back, I guess, a little bit less than a year back. And those are available as part of, I think they are still part of Gita chapter 7. So that's where you would look at. But the first 6 were not talking about the Gita, they were talking about the fundamentals of Vedanta. So if you have the time and if you have the option, you can look into that. Or I think I'm going to repeat many of the same things here, so you don't really, it's not imperative, it's not as though you're going to lose out. But if you wanted to look into that a bit more, you can go back. So in that section, we had talked about the following, and I'll update that to include in this Viveka. What we had said was that in our life, we have 2 kinds of gains. And the 2 kinds of gains are a gain of something that I don't have versus a gain of something that I have but don't know it. So generally speaking, our attempt is to find something which I don't have. So if you wanted to get some money, You work, you don't have, you get the money. Or if you wanted to go to travel to a new place that you've never been before, you go, or even to a place that you know, reaching there is something, you're not there yet and you will get there. This is all examples of something that the gain of something that I don't have. But every now and then you find that you have a gain of something that you already have but don't know it. Losing a key in the wrong pocket. An iPhone that is already in your car and you think you've left it back in the house. All kinds of examples. So this is what we discussed in more detail in the first section. So this is what is called the first type of gain where you don't have it is called apraptasya praptihi. These are all Sanskrit words, but you don't have to really pay much attention to it. I'm just giving you the authentic Sanskrit. Apraptasya prapti means, prapti means gain. Apraptasya means one which is not yet mine. The second time is called praptasya prapti, one we already have and gaining it. So that gain is a different kind of something that you already have. But for whatever reason, that's a different thing altogether. You don't own it. You don't understand it. You don't believe it. You cannot believe it because it's not a question of belief. You just don't have it. You feel you don't have it. The immortality of Atma. Now you can ask yourself, the immortality of yourself, because this is what we are seeking. What we are seeking is something which is total freedom. I will get into that a little bit more detail later. But let's just encapsulate it by the word immortality. Immortality is not the only thing that I'm seeking. I'm seeking happiness in immortality. I'm seeking awareness in immortality. A lot of things I'm seeking, but just to simplify it, immortality, is it one of praptasya praptihi or apraptasya praptihi? We think that it is apraptasya prapti, is something that I don't have and I want it. I want immortality. So I do things. And in fact, as we were discussing in the earlier class, the understanding of God is immortality. And I'm seeking it in some way, either in this life or next life or whatever. I'm seeking it as though I don't have it. Hey, it is you. God is nothing but your own immortality. It is praptasya prapti. You already have it, but you don't know it. Anyway, I just want to connect what we had done before to this. So, one quick thing, and then I think that's all the time we will have. So if we look at this issue of mixing up the self and the non-self, of taking myself who is intrinsically unlimited to be a limited, in the sense that when you are limited, now you become very subjected to all kinds of problems. Why? Because when you're saying I'm taking myself to be limited, limited means 3 or 4 dimensions to it, body. So the problems of the body become your problem. Oh my gosh. My mother used to say that. She said, my goodness, as I grow older, I had no idea how many diseases of the body there are. She was not a scientist, or she was just she had gone to college, but that's, not a very expert in different things. And so she never studied until she got a lot of diseases herself. She says, this is amazing. So all the diseases of the body become your problems. Worse than that, the problems of the mind become your problem. And really speaking, our attempt is to improve our mind and make sure that it stays good. This is never going to be totally successful. No way. Until you do this separation, the ultimate success is that the mind doesn't belong to me. It is kind of like the iron ball. The shape of the iron ball is not me. Anyway, so all I was saying was that this is a sad state where all the diseases of the mind, the body, the sense organs become my problems. And the reason that I'm born is because I have this aviveka. It's not as though I acquired the lack of discrimination later. No, I'm born with it. And in fact, what happens is, and I'll close with that, is that when we are born, we don't know who we are. And so we are engulfed in total ignorance. And we have not acquired a sense of these are my problems. In fact, this is an interesting thing we talk about in Vedanta. There is a word called Kumara. So this is a very specific thing. A Kumara is a child of 5 years old or less. It's called Kumara or Kumari for a female. And oftentimes is used as a middle name. And so what happens is that before that, you don't really have any self-identity. You're just busy with toys and food and, music and whatever. Your parents, you're sitting on the lap of the parents and playing with other people. That's all you do. And if you're hungry, then you feel, hey, I start crying, I need some food, thirsty or whatever. That's all. After 5, you develop a self-identity. And this is all by program. So one very interesting thing is that if 5 year or less is very similar to a non-human animal. I mean, non-human means animal. Because the animals, throughout their lives, they don't have any self-identity. The horse, if it doesn't come first, doesn't feel, oh my God, I am a terrible horse. The owner of the horse feels very bad. But the horse says, I'm very tired, give me some grass. That's all. Same thing with up to Kumara, 5 years old. The person feels, I'm okay. After 5, the self-identity slowly creeps up. And there is a period in life where it becomes very acute, which is the teenagers. Teenager is a very difficult period of life. Why? Because they have developed a self-identity but not a comfortable self-identity. You don't know who I should be or what I am. You look for others. Anyway, that's a separate topic. But so what I'm saying here is that the taking of the non-discrimination between the self and the non-self is the very seed of life. So one should not feel bad about that. It is really how we are born. But to get out of it is something which is very beautiful and very possible and available, and very happy that we are looking into it. So I will close the class with that, and we'll continue on. And I think that I have a little bit more to say on this before we start the text. I don't know when. I think we will start the text next time, but maybe not at the very beginning, because I will continue with this train of thoughts on the introduction to what we are doing, what the meaning of the word Viveka is. We'll continue with this train of thoughts for a little bit longer before wrapping it up and then beginning the text. Okay, so with that, let me just say a prayer and then open it up for any questions. I will look into the YouTube. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, let me open up my laptop and go to the YouTubes to see if any questions. Okay. Nancy Preston, yes, the text will be shared. I think I talked about it at the beginning of the class on how to do that. I will send you an email in the next day or so on where the text will be, how you can access it. So sure, absolutely. Very few people actually logged in, so I don't know how many people there are. Very few people are. So Nancy Preston, Simi Raman, Panna Chitalia, Arvind Taylor, Umid Chopra, Sam Dillon, Renu Daswani, Camille Coates are the only people that have, even though there are 46 people watching. So I would very much appreciate from next time if you could just, you just have to put your name down, you don't have to do anything. I'll wait for another minute or so to see if you have any questions. Please feel free to log in and report that, and so I'll be happy to answer that. So I'll wait for a while. In the meantime, all my best wishes for you, for your health and your well-being, and this unusual time you have a lot of time on your hands, I hope, and you please make good use of it. Andrea, and I'm sure Ramananji also will be there. Shubha, thank you. Okay, doesn't look like there are any. Carol Tonelli, Anil Bhargava, Jen Sterling. Any tips on how to keep our minds on track with this philosophy during the ups and downs of these coronavirus days? The only thing I would say is that this is where one has to have a certain amount of understanding of God. There's a lot of introduction to God that we will do, to Ishvara. And if you do that, I can just tell you from my standpoint, I find that this is the handiwork of Ishvara. There is a reason why this is happening. It's not as though it's a surprise for him. It's not as though the coronavirus is outside Ishvara creating problems. No. It's all the handiwork of the Almighty. Why he's doing it at this time and what the implications are, we don't know. None of that will just become manifest in the days to come. But a certain amount of trust, saying whatever. So what this means is that you do the best you can to make sure you are safe as possibly can. Absolutely, those are necessary. But I don't listen to here's what I do, and I think I'm just giving you my idea. I don't watch the TV the whole day. Hardly what at all. I have this TV here, which I have not even turned on. There's another TV in the house that the family watches sometimes, but I never watch it. What I do is that I would look at the synopsis of what is going on, what people are saying, through the internet, maybe once or twice a day. We have a great governor, and Newsom in California, really a remarkable guy. He really should be the president of the country, I think. He gives a very good synopsis at the end of the day. And so I try to see what he's saying. It's very positive. He's working towards trying to do things better and so on. So I do look at it. There's also a kind of a dashboard on how many people got infected and so on. I do look at it. But that's it. Probably 3 minutes of the day. The rest of the day I'm just going on with my life. And I'm very happy that you are all, you agreed to this class. Now I teach 3 or 4 classes a week. I'm busy. And I exercise in the house and help my wife with some cooking sometimes. That's it. I'm happy. So there's nothing else that you need to do. But I think that it all comes from a certain trust in saying whatever happens, happens. And if I'm taken away, I'm taken away. I'll resume my life in the next life somewhere. I'm confident of that. So whatever happens, it's okay. So anyway, those are some. Sam Dillon thought that we were starting at 11 o'clock. Anyway, you can always listen later. Anyway, if there is nothing else that you're asking, let me close this and hopefully we will see you next week. Okay, namaste.